But now I'm reading a new one, a marketing book, and this book is so bullshit. It's just, I think your influence is bad for me. It's really bad for me because I'm starting to have this BS detector just different than I used to. Like you changed me, man. It's like
I'm proud of you for developing your bullshit detector.
Yeah, I really 99 episodes in, you start to have really bad influence on me.
That was my plan all along, to shape Michael into a more skeptical human being.
I can see that now, and it's working. Shit. So. Well, that's our bottom line for the 100th episode.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. Self 5.
Our hopes or wishes for WWDC, what we want to see from iOS or the Mac or whatever else.
There is no whatever else. There's my new iPad coming. Hello, I'm Michael.
I'm Radek.
And this is The Podcast.
A sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books we read and want to share with you,
as well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day, working on our app, Nozbe.
Or whatever else comes to our minds. And
it's 99th episode, the best marketing episode ever. Well, anyway, 99, man. It is just one shy of 100.
Yeah, and the next one is going to be special because we're both flying to the US. We'll be there for Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. That's going to happen the next week from when this episode airs. And we're going to record the 100th episode in person in
Live.
the US. And we'll talk about, you'll see.
Exactly. So another chance for us to be in the same room and actually in the same hotel room. So it's going to be fantastic that it just it timed perfectly that the 100th episode is going to be spectacular. 100th episode spectacular. It's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be longer than the usual one, but it's going to be in video. It's going to be live. We're going to be there together. Because we'll be in the Silicon Valley in San Jose, California.
Yeah, and if any of you listeners want to meet, I'll be around in San Jose for WWDC and then for a couple of more days in San Francisco. So
let's get back. So WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference, is the event of the year for people interested in iOS, Mac, and stuff, and for us as developers of Nozbe apps for the Mac, for iOS, for iPad, for iPhone, for the Apple Watch. It's an important event because Apple is announcing new stuff. And this time we're coming together. So last year you were there, and this time we're going together. So we'll be for the whole week in San Jose from it's 5th to 9th of June. We'll be happy to meet you guys. I mean, if anyone is there, say hi. Don't be shy. I will be wearing the Nozbe shirts probably most of the time, and we'll be just in downtown San Jose. So our hotel is just right next to the venue, so we'll be very close to there. So
just tweet at us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think this is a perfect opportunity, since this airs just a few days before the keynote, that we talk about our thoughts pre-WWDC, what we hope to see there, what we want to get out of it for ourselves as users of iOS, of Mac, etc., as developers, as people really interested in not just the features users can see, but the features we can use to build features for our users. Well, do you feel like there's any kind of general theme that you want to get out of WWDC, like a broader trend that everything else revolves around?
Okay, so for me, the keyword for WWDC this year, the keyword really will be respect. I want some respect for my working on the iPad, man, for not trashing my working on the iPad. So I want some respect. And to get the respect, I'm going to get really great, respectful features on iOS 11 so that I can get even more and better work on the iPad. And you won't give me, your, hey, get a Mac thing.
Man, you're from another planet. You and Federico Vitici.
Exactly. So, but jokes aside, I'm gonna get some respect because all the birdies are saying that, like, after 2 years of not getting lots of iPad love, there is a chance that iOS 11 will bring some additional iPad features, some better split screen, some better sharing, maybe drag and drop between stuff on the iPad. So there is, like, hopefully, like, under the hood, iOS 11 will be more iPad capable. So for me, like, this is one of the main things I'm hoping for. I love my iPad Pro, and we'll link to the show notes, which iPad Pro I use now. I use right now the 10-inch Pro, and I love it. But of course, I want some love for it. So So hopefully, some new really good features in iOS directly will be there.
No, that makes perfect sense for you, especially. I hope for that too. Even though I don't have as much of a kind of personal stake in making iOS more powerful. Like, of course, I want it to evolve and become a more powerful, the iPad and the iPhone too, to become more powerful general purpose computers. Despite my much stronger love for the Mac, but I think two kind of very broad themes that I want that I want this year, that I also wanted a few years in a row, is one, I'm kind of missing the "it just works" factor. I feel like yeah. I feel like Apple has lost a little bit of that in the last few years. A lot of people has criticized Apple for the falling quality of their software, and unfortunately, I have to agree. Like, people have argued by numbers that, oh no, it's fine. I personally think that they have to set a higher standard for themselves. It's just like when you get this really expensive machine and you start working with it, you just want to do your stuff, and then you see 1 second, like 5 different frustrations that make it impossible. That's really tough. Like, it's so incredibly annoying when iOS and the Mac don't just work. And I feel like our expectations as users have grown. And so Apple shouldn't be content with the level of quality that they see, that they have some numbers that indicate that, measuring by, I don't know, number of crashes or whatever, it's better than it's ever been, because subjectively speaking, it's not. And ultimately, that's the only thing that matters. Quality is always subjective.
Recently, we've been doing a webinar for NOSB, and doing a webinar means preparing a presentation in Keynote for me. So I first do an outline in iThoughts app on my iPad, so in mind mapping, but then later I do the Keynote presentation. And this time I was using both the Mac and the iPad. I was doing the presentation actually on the iMac, but I was doing all the screenshots on the iPad. So I was, because especially for the presentation, I have to show people the ropes, how I'm doing something in Nozbe, and I was doing the screenshots. And for me, so you can tell that there is some quality problem in Apple software if I am surprised that things work, because I was just surprised that suddenly, like, the handoff, the copy and paste started working between my Mac and my iPad, just like that. And I was like, whoa, it actually works, So yeah. I wasn't expecting it to work because I thought, it made a good demo like a few years ago when they announced it, but it never really worked, just like AirDrop. But then suddenly I was just using it every time I was just doing a screenshot, I was sending it, I was copying to the clipboard and then pasting it on the Mac, and it just worked. And I was like, wow. So this thing actually works. So you can tell that we lowered the bar of their quality a little bit by just being surprised that something works now. And I don't want to be surprised that something works now. I want to be surprised if something doesn't work in Apple's case.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. It's very frustrating. Just today, a bunch of stuff suddenly broke on my Mac, and it turned out that something has spawned hundreds of zombie processes related to the touch bar, which I'm looking at right now, and oh, now it works. See, it was broken for a bit, and it just like it hit some obscure limit of the kernel. Like if I wasn't a nerd, like I would never figure out. It would just be broken. Like I would have to resort to rebooting it, and I had the same issue like a week ago. So like, rebooting every week, that's ridiculous, right? Like of course it's software, there's always a bug, like we know but Apple needs a higher standard, and the second theme I would say also wanted for a few years is, I feel like it's been a while since Apple has produced something or a number of things that had this kind of magic factor, this wow thing that you look at it and you're surprised at just how amazing this is. That wow, this is really the Apple magic, right? Because there's been a number of such things in the past, and I feel like for the last maybe 2-3 years, we've been seeing mostly steady evolutionary progress, which is good, and Apple is really good at iterating. Like that's not appreciated. Apple is known for this, like making this innovation like iPhone or iPad, but it's actually a large part of what makes Apple great is that they're really good at iterating at stuff, and that's fine too. But like I would be really pleased to see something that's more than iterative, that's more than evolutionary. And I feel like, well, actually, let me back that up. It can even be evolutionary, but to the point that it creates a different result. For example, like you're talking about iPad and iOS, and I feel like if iOS had a rather major evolution that made it so much more powerful and compelling on iPad to use for more serious productive stuff, that would be very impressive, right? And I don't necessarily expect that. Like I feel like they'll probably do a bunch of evolutionary stuff, and it will be kind of a good progress, but not quite satisfying.
I wonder, because they bought Workflow, the guys, and they bought them recently, so just really recently. I wonder if these guys are what they're doing right now in Apple. They're just working on a freaking demo for the WWDC of what they're up to. But it might be too early. I think there wasn't enough time. Like the acquisition happened like 2 months ago or something.
Exactly. Or 3 months.
So it's not enough. You're right. So I think Apple should dazzle us a little bit, and give us some really compelling features, and especially like for example the drag and drop, that it just works. Like I remember when I started using the Mac, when I went from being in the cave of Windows and then just saw the light of the Mac. For me, one of the key features that I really loved was drag and drop, like how it works like across the whole system. I was like, whoa, this is just mind blowing. And then like this would be one of the features that I would really want to have. Also, like speaking of copy and paste, for me, like one of the things, I'm using a third-party app to have a bigger clipboard, on iOS, and I've been always repeating that the clipboard, like the clipboard management, it should be built in the system. That we like having a limit of copying one thing and pasting one thing. It's just like really, this is not this is 2017. We should be able to copy several things and then use them later. It's just, it should be in the box of the system. It should be already under the hood, not that I have to have a third-party app managing my clipboard, So, like things like that, it would really be helpful. And well, as you said, they might not really dazzle us. But for example, another thing, just the last thing I want to mention. So Siri, apart from the fact that Siri still cannot add stuff to Nozbe, I mean, not directly. What you can do, of course, there is a hack. You can just have a contact, for your, a unique Nozbe email address, and just send an email to this email address, and then through Siri, and then she would add a task through that. So it works very well, and we'll link to this in the show notes. But just to Siri to be responsive and to be really useful for me, like I have the AirPods, and then I can tap to get Siri, but it's like I tap twice, and there's a pause for a few seconds, and then it's like ding, asking me for feedback. I'm saying something, again a pause, and I'm like beep beep, and then it just does something. I mean, why the pauses? What the heck is going on? I mean, I should be tapping and just saying, and that's it. It shouldn't be. There should be no gap, no timeout, between these actions. Apart from the fact that she's basically useless because she doesn't speak Polish at all. So one thing, but in English, even that, my accent is as it is, as you can hear it. So Siri has problems understanding me. But I've learned that my American friends have the same problems, so it's not even me like this.
Yeah, having a better accent helps a bit with speaking to Siri, but it's Siri that's the problem, not you. Turns out.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Siri has been very disappointing to me.
Very disappointing.
Like
she's from iPhone 4S, and we are at iPhone 7.
Yep. It's been 6 years
right now.
6 years since Siri was introduced, and it has gotten better, a lot better, but at such a slow pace. Like, I can see that it's better than it was 2 years ago, but it's like 15% better. And like, no.
Yeah, this shouldn't be like that. Siri should be just amazingly better every year, like by leaps and bounds. I mean, they are not doing anything to this product, and this should be like, we should be already interacting with it, like easily. And now with the AirPods, they're promoting Siri, but this is ridiculous. I have AirPods. I love my AirPods, but I'm not using Siri with my AirPods. Not at all, because I don't have the patience to wait for her to be responsive. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's been frustrating to me because I've started to see contexts where Siri is useful in theory. Like, for a long time, I would use it almost never, because why bother, right? Like, what's the point? But now, like, with Siri being on the watch, like, there's many just like tiny contexts where I'm walking around the house. I don't have my phone in my pocket, so I want to do something, and on the watch, like, you're not going to go to some app on your watch. Like, that's nonsense. You're going to use Siri, right? Or there's the Hey Siri thing that works on iPhone, like that works to trigger Siri on iPhone. Like, even if you don't touch the device, that makes it a bit more useful. Or like when I have my headphones, right, and I'm walking or something like that, I could do something with Siri. Like, it's not the primary or the secondary way of interacting with my devices, but I'm starting to see more and more cases where this could be useful. But the problem is that when it works like 60% of the time, it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah, you just lose patience. I mean, I've been using Siri on my watch, to get like super easy answers, like, like how many people live in China, or how many people live in whatever, like, when my kids ask me questions. So I'm this dad that knows the answers because I just ask Siri. And very often I get the answer right there on the watch, which is nice. But very often I just get, here's what I found on the internet. I'm like, no, come on. So that's the one thing. And then the second thing, as I said, responsiveness. It's just like to wait for, like, you press, and then for some reason it has to wait, I don't know how much time, like, for you to start talking, but you want to say now. Knowing the technology behind it, behind like what it takes, I don't see the reason for that timeout. There is no reason for that timeout. There is something wrong there, and there's nobody just gives a damn to actually fix it.
Yeah, but let's get back to talking about making iOS more powerful, because I think that's probably going to be one of the most important parts of WWDC. I think we should mention for those listeners who haven't seen it, there's a really cool concept video from Maxaris / Federico Vitici. We'll link to that.
Mm-hmm. My brother-in-arms iPad user.
yeah, it's true. And like the few most interesting things to me is first of all much better multitasking on iPad. And then the second interesting thing is drag and drop. So this is something that's, you mentioned the Mac. Like, I don't know what it's like today on Windows, but back in the day, like, drag and drop has always been everywhere on the Mac, and on Windows only in some places. And it made the Mac seem magical, how you can interact, between different apps by just dragging and dropping. Like, it would be so useful, so fast, so powerful, and so intuitive.
And it was a great showcase to show to people who didn't know that. Like, they would just wow in front of you. Like, you would just do it, and they were like, "Whoa, this is possible."
Today, it's expected. It doesn't surprise anyone, but it was one of those like magic wow things that, like, what a powerful way to like interact with and between apps. And it seems like drag and drop seems like such a natural extension to the iOS paradigm. Like, you're literally touching it, right? It seems perfect for touch. And right now it's just not there. Like, there's some places where something works. There's some apps that implement it on their own. But first of all, there should be a really good, really powerful system API that apps can use to use drag and drop within the apps, like especially on the iPad, where like you use it with your both hands, super powerful. And then between apps on iPad, like you select something and you, instead of copying and pasting, you just drag it to the second part of the screen, right?
Yeah, I mean, this would be just like one of my delights of using, for example, Nozbe, our app on the Mac, is the fact that whenever I want to attach an attachment to as a comment to a task, I just drag and drop it, and that's it. It's just so easy. I don't have to search for the file, browse through folder structure, whatever. I'm just drag and drop. That's it. It's added to the file, as a comment to a task, and that's it. I want to be able to do the same things on the iPad. I would like have Nozbe on one split screen, and then the some text or something on the other thing, or maybe an image or something. Drag and drop, add it as a comment. Thank you very much. Like, it would be really good.
Yeah, and I think one important theme in making iOS more powerful is better ways to make different apps work together. And so having drag and drop on the split screen, super powerful. Another like really interesting idea in the Mac Stories concept video is the shelf. So this is akin to what you're saying about
exactly
about clipboard management. Like,
save stuff for later that you use later. That like
yeah. So for those who haven't seen it, it's actually like you can drag something from an app and drop it onto this shared system space called the shelf in the concept, and then you can take it and again drag and drop it once you switch to another app. And like, that's a really interesting idea, because you get the benefit, like you get something like clipboard management, but done in a way that seems very fitting for touch, I think, and it's also really simple. And like it's interesting because it is this really simple paradigm of making apps work together, like in this kind of sort of indirect way, but still, if you have this shared space, and you have just two windows most on the iPad, right?
Yeah.
You can't have, well, you can have maybe the picture in picture. That will make it kind of free, but still you have just two windows. And for some kinds of things you want to do on a general purpose computer, that's frustrating. On a Mac, you can have as many windows as you want, and that sometimes has usability downsides. You have to manage that. Apple doesn't have this problem, but has another problem that if you have something more complex that you can't just do in one app, that's really frustrating. But if you could, if you had this, if you have split screen, we already have that. Make it much better. Make it easier to switch between apps in both of the sides of the split screen, and then you have this shared space for like moving data between those apps in a like simple way. I think that would probably make a big difference.
Yeah, and the implementation on the video, I really liked it because it wasn't so geeky. It was like
exactly.
It's really easy to understand. There's this shelf, you just drop it there, and then from this shelf you can drag and drop it there. It's very like the way iOS should work. So not geeky, but useful for people, and so easy that your grandma can understand it. So this is like I really liked it. Hopefully something like this will come at some point. to the iOS, because apart from, I mean, the rumors say that apart from the software features, there's going to be new hardware. So there will be new iPad and a tweener. So in between the iPad Pros, because I have the 9.7 inch iPad Pro, and I have also the 12.9 inch iPad Pro, and there's going to be a tweener, so a 10.5 inch with supposedly the resolution of the big one. And in the early rumors in this year, it was supposed to be, I mean, it was supposed to have no bezels and be as small, like have the same size as the 9.7 inch iPad. But now the rumors are saying that no, it's going to be a little bit bigger. It will have some bezels, but they will be just smaller, and it will have home button and things like that. So it will still be the same kind of iPad, but a little bit thinner and smaller. So I'm looking forward to this because I love my 10-inch iPad Pro because of the size, because the 12.9 inch is just too bulky for me to carry around, because it's as bulky basically as the 13-inch MacBook Pro. So it really it's not a compelling reason to carry it. And as we mentioned in one of the previous shows, when we were talking about traveling and working while traveling, what I like about my iPad is that I can carry it, effortlessly in a small messenger bag, and I can carry it around the whole day without, any penalty. It's just there, and if I need it to work, it's going to be there. So I'm curious about this new iPad Pro because it would solve my problem of needing a bigger screen, but still not bigger size, or just slightly bigger size. So I'm looking forward to this announcement. And recent history showed that they were not doing any hardware announcements on WWDC. But if we are right and the iOS features will be iPad-esque, so there will be more iPad love, hopefully there will be also iPad love hardware-wise. Well, I'm looking forward to it. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Yeah, and it seems like the rumors are quite strong that it seems like it's really happening. It seems a bit too early for leaks to occur if they were to ship the iPads in October, as they usually did.
Exactly.
And there were no new iPads last October, so it's not that they're early; they're late.
Yeah, I mean, the leaks were already in March, and then later, they didn't upgrade any of the iPad Pros. They just announced the new iPad, the new low-cost iPad, and so now it should, I think something went wrong, and that's why they delayed it. But I'm sure, the leaks are just too strong for nothing to happen. So my ideal scenario would be that after the keynote, I would just directly go to the Apple Store and just buy it, because hopefully it's going to be there. But, I don't think so. Well, we'll see.
And, I have to admit something to you. If they really do announce major iOS changes and this piece of hardware, I would want it as well.
You want an iPad?
Yeah.
Why would you want one?
I really like the mini form factor. I've really grown used to it. I think it's perfect for simple use cases of iPad, not as a pro machine necessarily, but as something simpler. But if you had something that's larger, for sure, but not as massive as the iPad Pro, something that's about the size of the 10-inch iPad, but it had this powerfully large screen, real estate, and it had the major improvements in making iPad a serious general purpose computer, plus what we already have, which is the keyboard cover plus the pencil. I think that would make it very interesting, to the point that even if there's no way of me kind of switching to iPad in the way that you did for the much extent, that would suddenly make iPad compelling enough for a lot of people as a general purpose computer that I would want to be part of that future and experience it firsthand.
Yeah. And we just talked today that you're a bad influence on me. Apparently, I'm also a bad influence on you. Good.
We're like that.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to this one, and because the whole appeal of the iPad is that it's not bulky. it's not big, that you don't, it doesn't require a big bag, you know, and like the 13 inch, the 12.9 inch, it's just too big. And my other problem is that the 10 inch iPad Pro, so 9.7 iPad Pro that I have, I bought it for testing, you know, so I bought the lowest cost ever, the 32 gigabytes. I took the upgrade for the LTE because for me iPad without LTE doesn't make any sense. So it has to be cellular connection. So I bought the cellular connection, but it's 32 gigabytes, and many apps right now are really heavy. And even if I keep it really thin, I don't really download lots of things on this iPad, it gets full most of the time. So it's frustrating. So the one I'm gonna get is gonna be bigger. So like, you know, it was my mistake to get an entry-level one because I thought, you know, I'm not going to use it much, but in the end I switched to it. So now I'm suffering.
Yeah, I have a few more thoughts about the theme of making apps work together better. So 3 years ago, there was a major upgrade to iOS in this regard, in that we got share extensions for apps that suddenly made it possible for you to get something out of one app and put it in another app. And over time, they got better and more powerful. And that's kind of another way for apps to interact in a simple way. But I want even more than that, because it's frustrating that you have this as this extra weird thing in the share, you know, under the share button. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a way to use the infrastructure of the share extensions, but in a more direct way, that you could just have a button or like something hooked up in an app directly to like make it communicate with another app without you having to go through the stupid share menu and finding the app and then citing some other options, but have the integration more direct. Now I realize this isn't a simple problem, because it involves another things, like have to make it in a way that's secure, and that, you know, there's a bunch of concerns, and I understand them. But that would be really powerful. Or what if, like, there's another idea I discussed a few weeks ago with some iOS developer, remote view controllers. The idea is that what if apps could render little bits of interface inside other apps? So just like you can trigger the share extension, but the system triggers the share extension from the share menu, right? But what if you could like put a little bit of your app inside other apps, like make different kinds of extensions. Like that would make another like powerful new paradigm of extensibility of apps, and the whole extensions infrastructure is already in place for iOS to do it in a way that's going to be much cleaner than was possible in the past on the Mac, for example, because it wouldn't be like it wouldn't like execute some other app's code directly. Like it would make this clean, safe environment where like other app can put like render, like draw views, draw interface inside your other app, but it's still controlled by this other process. This is already, everything is already in place. The system, the iOS can already do it and does. But if you just pull the strings together, like imagine the possibilities, right? And like we've been seeing this trend already for the last few iOS releases. We started with share extensions and widgets. Last year we had interactive notifications that you can 3D touch on a notification, and a little bit of interface from your app shows on the lock screen. Like you have this general trend in iOS of putting just tiny bits of your app everywhere. That the app paradigm shifts to become kind of more spread out throughout the system. It's not just the app is something that fills your whole screen, but also connects to everything else.
Yeah, I mean, we have something similar right now when we log into things. Like, for example, when you log into Nozbe, you can there is an icon for 1Password if you have 1Password.
Yeah.
And then you can just literally open 1Password within Nozbe just to find your password for Nozbe, tap on it and just log in. So it is kind of the thing, right? Like what you're saying, right? That,
kind of,
there is...
but the way this works, this is a total hack. The whole 1Password thing, it's a total hack. Like, imagine if this wasn't a hack and you could do it with so many other things.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This is a hack right now just to log in. But I'm saying that this is the thing, that we invoke 1Password throughout, through the login in Nozbe inside the app, and then we really have a 1Password window like on top of Nozbe just to get the password. Yeah. I'm just saying that something like this, when you can invoke a different app within the app, or a window of an app within the app, and just this way you can really make beautiful connections and interactions and partnerships.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we have Evernote. Like, in Nozbe, we have Evernote integration, right? So imagine the situation that when you add a comment to Nozbe right now, and you have it hooked up with Evernote, we have this interface that we had to create for you to search an Evernote note, and was one of them recent, and then you add it and it's there. But imagine that if you could, add Evernote note, and just within Nozbe find the note with Evernote interface, and then add it there, and just open also when you have the note, open this note to view it inside Nozbe with an Evernote interface. Yeah. So you would this would be really powerful.
That's a perfect example, because one of the things that is there is you can, I don't know with Evernote, but for sure with Dropbox, you can add something from Dropbox to Nozbe, without anything on our part.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's not quite what we want, because it's part of the file picker. So what happens is you select a file, and you can get it from your photo library, or you can get it from Dropbox. You select a file from Dropbox. It downloads from Dropbox if necessary. It is in the Nozbe app. Then it gets uploaded to the Nozbe server as a copy. Like, that's we could do better. Like,
exactly. So again, coming back to my Evernote example, we don't download any note to Nozbe or upload it to Nozbe or whatever. We integrate really an Evernote note. So and then we can have the fallback on the desktop that we click and whatever. But on the iOS, this would be native Evernote windows within Nozbe. It would be really so cool.
Yeah, and with this infrastructure that's largely already in place, you could make it so that there's a common interface that other apps can, users can install, say, I don't know, Google Drive. Like, we have Google Drive integration now, I think. Yeah. Right? Yeah, but say we didn't, right? But if you had this common thing that, okay, you have an API call that allows some app providing files to display a picker, but not in a way that it works now, that you copy it, but then you get a URL to it, and then you can preview it again with an arbitrary apps interface. Exactly. Very powerful.
Just notes. Possible. I mean, just think about, I'm using, for example, Foxit Reader on the iPad for PDFs, right? And I can annotate on it. So if I could open the PDF, open the PDF with the Foxit directly inside Nozbe, annotate more, and just close it, and we'll just automatically be updated. There can be so many things,
Yeah, and right now it's crap. Like, you have to open it, which opens it in Safari view. You probably have to go to Safari, download
open
it,
then
exactly. Open. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just
no. Another extensibility point for apps is, of course, Siri.
Yeah.
And Apple announced a Siri interface for developers last year, but in a very limited fashion. That's not useful for us. Like, there's no good way for Nozbe to hook up to that. I hope there's going to be one this year. I hope Siri in general becomes better. And the two things together, wow, that would be great.
Yeah. For me, apart from this iPad and iOS things, I'm hoping that as you said, the thing, the handoff and all these things that kind of work right now between Mac and iOS, that they will really work well. Like they would really iron out the kinks, you know. Then for me this would be a big thing that because this is pretty powerful. I mean, having an iMac, an iPad, actually 2 iPads and 1 iPhone, having all this together and working seamlessly, and you know, like I recently switched to Ulysses for writing, and it uses iCloud as a sync source, and it works very well. So it can be done. You know, the third party is doing an iCloud sync, and it works very well. And it's magic. You know, I know that whenever I just write things, it's going to be updated. It's going to be up to date. It's going to be, you know, everywhere. So this kind of, you know, everywhere magic to work like all of the time. Not that, you know, I have to press like 20 times airdrop so that it just suddenly starts working or something, or just, I don't know, make some magic moves. So yeah, this would be fun. But anyway, it's going to be a fun week.
Yeah, very much so.
Apart from the WWDC, so the keynote and whatever we want, it's going to be a fun week for us. I mean, you get you got the badge, so you will be able to attend the conference. I will be outside begging for people to let me in. No, just kidding. I know I will have lots of other things to do and to see. So we'll be watching, you know, the ATP live. We got tickets for that, and you know, we'll be just talking to people, meeting people. It's going to be a really exciting time and actually you are to blame because you convinced me to go, and even without the ticket, I think I'm going to get lots out of it. So I'm really happy about it.